The islands of Greece, Santorini and Crete.
Table of Contents, Santorini and Crete.
All about Santorini and Crete. With visiting and touring information, geography, history, attractions, and other points of interest.
Dr. Sydney Soclof. Dr. Sydney22@gmail.com. 2023. Narration by Dr. Sydney Soclof.
Zoe Phonemes.
And Nathan Koltov. For a complete discussion of YouTube navigation, please go to tiny.1/ytnavigator.
Chapter 1. The Islands of Greece, Santorini and Crete.
This is the flag of Greece.
Greece, in Greek, Alos, is officially the Hellenic Republic, Elleniki Demokratia.
Greece lies at the juncture of Europe, Asia, and Africa. It is heir to the heritages of classical Greece, the Byzantine Empire, and nearly 4 centuries of Ottoman rule.
Greece was influential in Europe, Northern Africa, and the Middle East.
Greece is regarded as the cradle of Western civilization and being the birthplace of democracy, Western philosophy, the Olympic Games, Western literature, political science, major scientific principles and drama, including both tragedy and comedy.
Today, Greece is a developed country, a member of the European Union since 1981 and a member of the Economic and Monetary Union of the European Union.
Where is Greece?
Greece is in the eastern Mediterranean, just to the east of Italy and to the west of Turkey.
Greece is bounded on the west by the Ionian Sea, and on the east by the Aegean Sea.
Greece is bounded on the north by Albania, Macedonia, and Bulgaria. Directly to the north, and to the east across the Aegean Sea is Turkey.
The island of Crete is part of Greece.
To the south of Greece is the Sea of Crete, and the larger Mediterranean Sea.
The Aegean Sea.
The Aegean Sea in Greek is Aegeopelagus.
The Aegean Sea is an elongated arm of the Mediterranean Sea between the southern Balkan and Anatolian peninsulas. That is, between the mainlands of Greece and Turkey respectively.
The Aegean Sea is part of the Mediterranean Sea, and is between Greece and Turkey.
The Aegean Sea also includes the Sea of Crete in the south, and the Thracian Sea to the north.
In the north, the Aegean Sea is connected to the Sea of Marmara and the Black Sea by the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus.
The Aegean Islands are within the sea, and some bounded on its southern periphery, including Crete and Rhodes.
The Greek Aegean Islands are traditionally subdivided into 7 groups. Among these are from north to south, the northeastern Aegean Islands, Sporades, Argosaronic Islands, Cyclades, Dodecanese, or southern Sporades, and Crete.
Almost all of the Aegean Islands belong to Greece. Turkish possessions include Imbros, Tenedos, and various smaller islets off Turkey's western coast.
The chief ports of the Aegean Sea are Iráklion on the island of Crete, Piraeus, Thessaloniki and Alexandroupolis, all on the mainland of Greece, and Izmir in Turkey. The sea is well served by cruise ships, regional ferries and hydrofoils.
An archipelago is a chain or cluster of islands. The Aegean Sea was traditionally known as the archipelago, in Greek, archipelagos.
An archipelago is a chain or cluster of islands. The Aegean Sea was traditionally known as the archipelago, in Greek, archipelagos. The term archipelago is now used to generally refer to any island group or sometimes to a sea, containing many scattered islands, like the Aegean Sea.
Many of the islands in the Aegean have safe harbors and bays in ancient times. Navigation through the sea was easier than traveling across the rough terrain of the Greek mainland.
Many of the islands are volcanic, and marble and iron are mined on other islands. The larger islands have some fertile valleys and plains.
There are political disputes between Greece and Turkey over control over the Aegean, including the size of territorial waters.
Santorini.
Santorini is a small, circular archipelago of volcanic islands located in the southern Aegean Sea, about 200 kilometers, or 120 miles southeast from Greece's mainland in the Cyclades island group.
The largest island is known as Firá, forming the southernmost of the Cyclades group of islands.
Santorini has an area of approximately 73 square kilometers, 28 square miles, and a population of 14,000.
Santorini is composed of the municipality of Firá, population 12,440, and the community of Aegean, population 1,230, which includes 268 inhabitants residing on the offshore island of Therasia, lying to the west.
Santorini was the scene of one of the world's most violent volcanic eruptions around 1450 BC. It is arguably the most scenically dramatic of all the Greek islands.
Santorini has pitch-black beaches, a rugged landscape, a stunning caldera, volcanic crater, and whitewashed churches and cliff-top houses.
The best views are from the cliffs bordering the caldera, which was formed when the center of the island basically collapsed in onto itself.
Santorini is still an active volcano, and the most recent major earthquake was in 1956. Santorini is still an active volcano, and the most recent major earthquake was in 1956.
Volcanic eruption.
This is Santorini, or Firá, as it might have appeared before 1450 BC.
Santorini is essentially what remains of an enormous volcanic explosion that destroyed the earliest settlements
on what was formerly a single island, and leading to the creation of the current geological caldera.
The devastating volcanic eruption of Firá has become the most famous single event in the Aegean before the fall of Troy.
This may have been one of the largest volcanic eruptions on Earth in the last few thousand years, with an estimated 7 on the VEI, Volcanic Explosivity Index.
Only 2 or 3 other volcanic eruptions, including Mount Tambora in 1815, have released more material into the atmosphere during the past 5,000 years.
This shows the Volcanic Explosivity Index scale and the effects of each increment of the scale. This shows the Volcanic Explosivity Index scale and the effects of each increment of the scale.
Here is ancient Firá before the eruption.
A large chamber of molten rock formed deep in the mountain.
A massive volcanic eruption occurred, spewing out the molten magma, now called lava.
The magma chamber emptied.
The top of the mountain collapsed into the now empty magma chamber.
This formed a caldera, or crater, filled with water from the sea.
A giant central lagoon, more or less rectangular, and measuring about 12 by 7 kilometers, 7.5 by 4.3 miles, is surrounded by 300 meters, 980 feet, high steep cliffs on 3 sides.
The island slopes downward from the cliffs to the surrounding Aegean Sea. The bay surrounding Santorini is actually the world's largest volcanic crater,
created 3,500 years ago by a massive eruption of the Firá volcano. The bay is also believed by some to conceal the legendary lost city of Atlantis.
The modern-day Firá was completely rebuilt after an earthquake in 1956.
The island has layers of solidified lava on top of each other, and the main towns are perched on the crest. The ground then slopes outwards and downwards, towards the sea, and the outer beaches are smooth and shallow.
On the fourth side, the lagoon is separated from the sea by another much smaller island called Firá. The lagoon merges with the sea in two places, in the northwest and southwest.
The water in the center of the lagoon is nearly 400 meters, 1,300 feet, deep, thus making it a safe harbor for all kinds of shipping. The island's harbors all lie in the lagoon, and there are no ports on the outer perimeter of the island.
The capital, Firá, clings to the top of the cliff looking down on the lagoon.
This is the most active volcanic region in the South Aegean volcanic arc, though what remains today is chiefly a water-filled caldera.
The volcanic arc is approximately 500 kilometers long and 20 to 40 kilometers wide. The region first became volcanically active around 4 million years ago, although volcanism on Firá began around 2 million years ago.
Santorini is the site of one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded history, the Minoan eruption, sometimes called the Firá eruption,
which occurred some 3,600 years ago at the height of the Minoan civilization.
The name Santorini was given to it in the 13th century, and is a reference to Saint Irene.
Before that it was known as Callisti, the most beautiful one, Stronguli, the circular one, or Firá.
The eruption left a large caldera surrounded by volcanic ash deposits hundreds of feet deep, and may have led indirectly to the collapse of the Minoan civilization on the island of Crete. 110 kilometers, 68 miles, to the south, through the creation of a gigantic tsunami.
Another popular theory holds that the Firá eruption is the source of the legend of Atlantis. What is Atlantis?
Atlantis is a legendary island in the Atlantic Ocean, lying west of the Straits of Gibraltar.
The principal source for the legend is Plato's dialogues. Plato describes how Egyptian priests,
in conversation with the Athenian lawgiver Solon, described Atlantis as a very large island situated just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Straits of Gibraltar.
Atlantis was said to be a rich island whose powerful princess conquered many of the lands of the Mediterranean.
Atlantis is probably a mere legend, but medieval European writers believed it to be true, and later writers tried to identify it with an actual country.
After the Renaissance, for example, attempts were made to identify Atlantis with America, Scandinavia, and the Canary Islands.
According to legend, the Atlanteans became wicked and impious, and their island was swallowed up by the sea as a result of earthquakes.
The story of Atlantis, if Plato did not invent it, may in fact reflect ancient Egyptian records of a volcanic eruption on the island of Firá about 1500 BC.
This eruption, one of the most stupendous of historical times, was accompanied by a series of earthquakes and tsunamis that shattered civilization on Crete, thereby perhaps giving rise to the legend of Atlantis.
Points of interest on Santorini.
Firá has cobbled streets, whitewashed houses and churches, jewelry and craft shops, cliff-top restaurants and terrific views of the seas below.
Firá can easily be explored on foot, and taxis are also available. There is a small archaeological museum near the cable car station.
There is an internet cafe about 50 yards from Firá's main square, Placetia Theotako Palau.
For shopping, the main thoroughfare is Otis Erythro Stavro.
This is a view of Firá.
The archaeological excavations at Aegean date back to the Minoan civilization of 2000 BC.
Aegean is at the southwestern tip of Santorini and bears a similarity to the destroyed city of Pompeii.
A crater was covered in a sea of lava by Firás cataclysmic eruption in 1450 BC that was 4 times the strength of Krakatoa.
A crater has now been partially excavated, revealing some beautiful frescoes and buildings dating as far back as the 16th century BC.
Also worth visiting is Aegean, a pretty village of pastel-tinted and whitewashed houses set into the cliffside.
In Aegean there are leafy squares, picturesque restaurants, art galleries and craft shops.
From Aegean there are also paths down to 2 black sand volcanic beaches.
This is Santorini's famous Reed Beach.
The history of Santorini.
Santorini hosted an important civilization around 3600 BC. Discoveries made in an important city near a crater and the famous Reed Beach show the existence of an ancient Minoan colony.
The ancient Minoan colony was very similar to those found on the island of Crete, with many wall ornaments and pottery, showing naturalistic landscapes of animals and humans of the same ancient Minoan style.
In ancient times, Santorini Island was known as Strongali, which means round in Greek.
There was an enormous volcano's eruption in 1500 BC. The eruption was so huge that many consider it to be the main cause of the destruction of the great Minoan civilization on the island of Crete, situated 70 nautical miles away.
It is thought that the explosion was so strong that it created gigantic waves that reached the shores of the surrounding islands in Crete.
After the explosion, the center of Santorini sank, and the many earthquakes that followed destroyed a big part of the rest of the island.
In some ancient myths, the destruction of the island is the source of the legend of Atlantis.
According to history, Phoenicians settled on ancient Firá around 1300 BC, and then around 1100 BC. The island was occupied by people from Greece.
Around 825 BC, the inhabitants of the island, then named Firá, were using the Phoenician alphabet.
This is a comparison of the Phoenician and Greek and Roman alphabets.
In the 7th and 6th centuries BC, Firá had commercial and trade relations with most of the islands and cities of Greece. During the Hellenistic period, Firá, because of its central position in the Aegean, became an important trade center and naval base, due to its strategic position.
Between 1200 AD and 1579 AD, the island was under Byzantine and Venetian reign, and from 1579 to 1821 AD was under the Turkish occupation, until the Greek Revolution and independence.
Santorini became independent from Ottoman rule in 1821, during the Greek War of Independence, and was united with Greece in 1830 under the Treaty of London.
The volcano continued to erupt over the years. On the whole, 14 eruptions recorded between 198 BC and 1950. The Palea and Nicomedes Islands near Santorini were created by these eruptions.
Firá also suffered a terrible earthquake and volcanic eruption in 1956, which led to a huge decrease of the population and an economic catastrophe.
Due to the expansion of tourism, the island has gained wealth and population, with major settlements at Firá and Aegean.
A crater is a major archaeological site, with ruins from the Minoan era. Santorini's primary industry is tourism.
Santorini's pumice quarries have been closed since 1986, in order to preserve the caldera.
Santorini has no rivers, and water is scarce. A desalination plant has provided running, yet non-potable, water to most houses.
The traditional architecture of Santorini is similar to that of the other Cyclades islands, with low-lying cubicle houses, made of local stone and whitewashed or lime-washed with various volcanic ashes used as colors.
The unique characteristic is the common utilization of the hyposkafa, extensions of houses dug sideways or downwards into the surrounding pumice.
Because of the high insulation provided by the air-filled pumice, these rooms are used as living quarters for coolness in the summer and warmth in the winter, and also as storage space for produce and wine.
Santorini is one of the few Cyclades islands with a major airport, located about 6 kilometers southeast of Firá.
Ships have to anchor off Santorini and tender passengers into Firá, the small port below Firá.
This is a view of Firá and the collapsed caldera.
This is a view of Firá.
This shows the location of Firá.
This is a closer look at the location of Firá.
This is a closer look showing Firá or Ormus Firan, the small port below Firá.
This is an even closer look at Firá, Ormus Firan, the small port below Firá.
This shows the zigzag path going from Firá up to Firá.
This again shows the zigzag path going from Firá up to Firá. There is also a cable car going up to Firá.
Firá dates from the 9th century and lies atop 1,000-foot cliffs at the edge of the caldera. It can be reached by cable car or up the steep winding steps by donkey.
Tenders shuttle passengers right to shore below Firá. There is the choice of a cable car or a ride on a donkey up the path to Firá.
The cable car from the harbor to Firá was constructed in 1979 as a gift from the wealthy Santorini ship owner, Evangelos Nomikos, whose ships are regular visitors to the island.
The cable car can transport up to 1,200 persons per hour.
The cable car was made by the Swiss company Doppelmayr.
This is a view of the cable car from Firá looking down to the harbor.
This is the top of the cable car line at Firá.
This is the view from Firá looking down at the harbor.
This is the cable car station.
This is a view of the cable cars.
Another way to make the 350-meter ascent, or descent, between the port on the water's edge and Firá is by walking up the zigzag path or riding on a donkey.
This shows a donkey on the path up to Firá.
These are donkeys on the staircase path to Firá.
This is a view of Firá.
Byzantine jewelry is a good buy here, as well as the local wine. Santorini produces a very drinkable white. There is also locally produced pottery and embroidery.
Crete.
The island of Crete is one of 13 administrative regions of Greece.
Crete, or Crete, is southeast of the mainland of Greece and is the 5th largest island in the Mediterranean Sea, and the largest of the Greek islands.
Crete is oblong in shape, extending 160 miles, or 260 kilometers, from east to west.
The width of Crete ranges from 6 to 35 miles, or 10 to 56 kilometers.
The land area of Crete is 3,200 square miles or 8,300 square kilometers. That is just a little more than half the size of the U.S. state of Connecticut at 5,544 square miles.
Crete has a mostly mountainous terrain.
The population of Crete is 550,000. Iráklion is Crete's capital, largest city, and the major port of Crete. 1/4 of the island's population lives in Iráklion.
Chania, the former capital, is the second largest city.
Here are the 4 major regions of Crete. To the north of Crete is the Cretan Sea, and to the south is the Libyan Sea.
Agriculture is the chief source of wealth in Crete. Crete's mild climate and excellent soil are ideal for agriculture, with olives as the leading crop.
Other important agrarian products include oranges, lemons, grapes, and grain. Sheep and goats are raised. The only notable industries are food processing and the manufacture of soap and textiles.
Kenia is an important port city of Crete on the northern coast. It is set against the rugged mountains of Crete. Kenia exports wine and citrus fruit.
The history of Crete.
From about 3000 to 1200 BC, Crete was the center of a flourishing Bronze Age civilization, classified as the Aegean, and sometimes called the Minoan.
The cultural achievements of this period rival those of contemporary Egypt and Mesopotamia.
The Minoan civilization was centered at Knossos and reached its peak in the 16th century BC, trading widely in the eastern Mediterranean.
The Minoans produced striking sculptures, frescoes, pottery, and metalwork.
By about 1500 BC, Greek mainlanders from Mycenae had assumed an influential role in Minoan affairs.
After Crete suffered a major earthquake that destroyed Knossos and other centers about 1450 BC, power in the region passed decisively to the Mycenaeans.
Around 1200 BC, another Greek-speaking people, the Dorians, invaded and took over the island.
One of the earliest historical references to Crete occurs in the Odyssey by Homer.
The island had 90 independent cities, the greatest of which was Knossos, capital of the realm of the legendary Cretan king Minos.
The ancient city of Knossos was the center of the Minoan civilization, an advanced society on Crete that was named after Minos, the legendary king of Crete.
The Minoans were skilled in such fields as engineering and architecture.
The Great Palace at Knossos was built gradually between 1700 and 1400 BC, with periodic rebuilding after destruction.
Crete played a supporting role in the revival of Greek civilization that began in the 9th century BC, and during Athens' heyday in the 5th century BC. Crete fascinated the Greeks as a source of myths, legends, and laws.
In 67 BC, the Romans conquered Crete in 395 AD. The island passed to Byzantium, the Eastern Roman Empire, control in 1204. In the aftermath of the Fourth Crusade, the Crusaders sold the island to Venice, which incorporated Crete into its growing commercial empire.
The Ottoman Turks conquered the capital city of Candia, now Iráklion, from the Venetians in 1669 after a 22-year-long siege, one of the longest sieges in history. Crete stagnated under Turkish rule.
This is the Ottoman Turkish Empire in 1700, when Crete was under its rule.
During the 250 years under Turkish occupation, the native Cretans, however, never abandoned their Orthodox religion, Greek language, and popular lore.
The Turks were finally expelled by Greece in 1898, after which the island held autonomous status until its union with Greece in 1913.
After conquering the Greek mainland in 1941, the Germans launched an airborne invasion of Crete during World War II, rapidly occupying the entire island.
This was the first invasion led by airborne troops in history. British forces liberated Crete in 1945.
The Palace of Knossos.
Knossos, with alternative spellings of Knossos, 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 or Greek Knossos, is the largest Bronze Age archaeological site on Crete.
It was probably the ceremonial and political center of the Minoan civilization and culture.
The palace at Knossos is a popular tourist destination near Iráklion, and has been partially reconstructed.
This is a portion of the reconstruction of the Minoan Palace at Knossos. This is Bastion A at the north entrance, noted for the bull fresco above it.
This is the Prince of Lilies, or Priest King relief, Plaster relief at the end of the corridor of processions.
This is a plaster relief in the Palace of Knossos, depicting 3 Minoan women.
This is magazine 4, with giant pithoi or large storage jars. The compartments on the floor are for grain and produce.
These are rooms of the Minoan palace located on the west side.
These are frescoes that decorated the walls.
The centerpiece of the Mycenaean palace was the so-called throne room, or little throne room.
This is the restored Palace at Knossos.
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 A second important archaeological site on Crete is the Great Palace at Phaistos.
Phaistos was inhabited from about 4000 BC.
The Palace of Phaistos, dating from the Middle Bronze Age, was destroyed by an earthquake during the Late Bronze Age.
Knossos and other Minoan sites were also destroyed at that time. The palace was later rebuilt toward the end of the Late Bronze Age.
This is the excavated palace at Phaistos.
Gordes is an archaeological site on Crete, 45 kilometers from Iráklion. Gordes was the Roman capital of Crete. It was first inhabited around 3000 BC, and was a flourishing Minoan town between 1600 and 1100 BC.
The remains of the biggest and most important Christian cathedral of Crete, dedicated to Saint Titus, the first bishop of Crete in the 6th century AD, are at Gordes.
The Samaria Gorge is a national park on Crete, and one of the major tourist attractions of the island.
The most famous part of the gorge is the section known as the Iron Gates, where the sides of the gorge close to about 12 feet or 4 meters, and reach up to 1500 feet, or 500 meters high.
Tourism has replaced agriculture as the economic mainstay of Crete, and contributes a large proportion of the gross domestic product.
Only about 1/3 of Crete's total area can be cultivated, and its farmers have traditionally worked small patches of land with little help from mechanization.
Crete is one of Greece's leading regions for producing olives, olive oil, grapes, vegetables, tomatoes and potatoes, fruits, oranges and carob beans.
Most of the produce is exported. Grapes are the largest export commodity, and Crete's olive trees provide more than 1/3 of the total national olive crop.
Heraklion or Iráklion, in Greek, Iraklio, and in Italian, Candia, is the largest city and the capital of Crete. For centuries it was called Candia. Historically, Candia was the largest city and principal port of Crete.
The population of Iráklion is 138,000, and the population of the entire island of Crete is about 550,000.
Iráklion is the largest seaport on Crete. It is surrounded by fortifications built by the Genoese and Venetians in the Middle Ages.
Iráklion is an important shipping port and ferry dock. Ferries and boats go to many destinations, including Rhodes, Egypt, Haifa and mainland Greece.
The name Heraklion derives from the ancient Roman port of Heraklium, which likely occupied the same site.
As the capital of Saracen Crete in the 9th century AD, it took the Arabic name Kandak, or Moat, which was corrupted to Candia by the Venetians, to whom the island was sold in 1204.
Most of the extensive system of walls built around the city by the Venetians survives.
Iráklion is very close to the ruins of the Palace of Knossos, which in Minoan times was the biggest center of population on Crete.
So it is very likely that there was a port here as long ago as 2000 BC. There's however no archaeological evidence for such a port.
This is the harbor at Iráklion.
The present city of Iráklion was founded in 824 AD by the Saracens, an Arabic Muslim people. They built a moat around the city for protection, and named the city Handak, or moat.
In 1204, Iráklion was bought by the Venetians as part of a complicated political deal.
After the Venetians came the Turks of the Ottoman Empire. They besieged Iráklion for 22 years in a bloody war in which 30,000 Cretans and 120,000 Turks died.
Upon independence, the city was renamed to Heraklion, meaning City of Heracles, Hercules, after the port of Heraklion, which had existed somewhere in the locality in Roman times.
In 1913, Iráklion and the rest of Crete was incorporated into the Kingdom of Greece.
The Venetian walls of Iráklion have a length of 2.5 miles, or 4 kilometers, and 7 of the ramparts are still standing today. They are the most important Venetian fortifications in Greece.
The walls end in the Rocca al Mare, the Venetian fortress built for the protection of the breakwater. It is the biggest monument in Iráklion.
The Venetian medieval fortress Rocca al Mare is also known as Coles.
The Ottoman Turks called this fortress Coles, and used it as a prison, adding the upper parts and a minaret.
This is the Rocca al Mare, the Venetian fort at Iráklion.
Numerous earthquakes, notably in 1664, 1856, and 1926, have taken their toll of the city's buildings and monuments, including many fine churches and mosques.
During the German invasion in 1941, Iráklion suffered heavy damage from bombing.
After World War II, Iráklion gained considerable commercial prominence with a new harbor, an airport, and several hotels to serve the tourist trade.
Among Iráklion's principal exports are grapes, especially sultanas, olives and olive oil, wine, carobs, citrus, almonds, soap, vegetables, and leather.
The Iráklion Archaeological Museum has the largest collection of Minoan art and culture in the world.
The Iráklion Archaeological Museum is housed in a modern building specifically designed for the purpose.
The Morosini Fountain in Venizelos Square was built during the time of the Venetian rule in 1628 by General Morosini.
The square was intended to be a replica of the Piazza San Marco in Venice, hence the lions and mythological scenes decorating it.
Venizelos Square, also known as Ta Liontaria, or Lions Square, and Fountain Square, is a busy animated place with restaurants, cafes and shops. It is very popular with tourists and locals.
St. Mark's Basilica was built in 1303. It now houses the Municipal Art Gallery, specializing in Byzantine painting.
For the first-time visitor, a good way to see the main sites of Iráklion including Knossos is by means of a hop-on hop-off bus.
The Iráklion route lasts 60 minutes without getting off the bus. But you can also hop on and off at any of the stops as many times you wish.
The frequency of the Heraklion open tour buses is every 45 minutes and allows you to visit any place that interests you. The ticket is valid for 24 hours.
This is a map of the Heraklion open tour route. Note that there are stops at the cruise port and at Knossos.
Commentary is available in 8 languages, in English, French, German, Greek, Italian, Russian, Spanish, and Swedish.
The climate of Santorini.
Will it be hot? Or will it be cold on Santorini?
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year in Santorini.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Celsius throughout the year in Santorini.
The daytime temperatures in the winter months are a cool 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or 18 to 16 degrees Celsius. At night, the temperatures drop to a chilly 45 degrees Fahrenheit, or 18 to 21 degrees Celsius.
The daytime temperatures in the summer months are a warm 80 degrees Fahrenheit, or 26 degrees Celsius. At night, the temperatures drop to a more comfortable 70 degrees Fahrenheit, or 18 to 21 degrees Celsius.
Rainfall in Santorini.
Here is the average rainfall in inches throughout the year in Santorini. The total yearly rainfall is 22 inches, or 554 millimeters.
Here is the average rainfall in millimeters throughout the year in Santorini. Recommended videos: Greece.
Recommended video: Santorini Vacation Travel Guide, Expedia, 5 minutes, 13 seconds.
Recommended video: Rick Steves, Greek Islands, 25 minutes, 36 seconds.
Recommended video: 8 best things to do in Santorini.
Recommended video: Introducing Crete, 2 minutes, 40 seconds.
Recommended video: Crete Island, best places to visit in Greece, 3 minutes, 10 seconds.
Recommended video: Knossos Vacation Travel Video Guide, 9 minutes, 33 seconds.
Recommended video: Exposa Travel, Crete Vacation Travel Video Guide, 25 minutes, 34 seconds.
Recommended video: Exposa Travel, Iráklion Vacation Travel Video Guide, 9 minutes, 33 seconds. Table of Contents: Santorini and Crete.
Thanks for watching. Please watch some more of my great videos.